All right, hi, I'm so happy to be here. My name is Joni, and I'm hosting a live audience recording of Growthpodden. And we are recording at Analytics Day in Stockholm 2020. And I am the growth director at Rebel & Bird. We are a digital agency, and we help companies scale by using growth methodology when building digital experiences and products. And I'm entering actually my 10th year in digital analytics. I had different roles, analyst, conversion specialist, and now growth director. And, you know, I'm actually freaking disappointed at us. Stuff has been happening throughout these 10 years, but I still see most backlogs filled with unvalidated ideas, guesses. And so many startups, they never find product market fit, so they fail. And this makes me think, like, talented people are wasting valuable time building and marketing things that has zero impact on our world. While at the same time, don't you feel like our world is freaking imploding? It's not that people don't understand the importance of data or like data could help us fix this. It is the know-how, the knowledge in how to use the data in everyday decision making. You guys know that. That's your job, right? But it's also the lack of management enabling this way of working. So I was thinking, what happens when the digital analyst stepped into the management position? Is it something different in those companies? And so I wanted to explore this, and I was thinking, who could I interview in Growthpodden to explore it? So I invited two of the most experienced people I know who has been working with digital analytics, even before Google Analytics was Google Analytics. But they are now in management positions. So welcome to the stage, please, Johanna from Paradox Interactive and Joost from Spotify. So, Johanna, you are the studio group operations manager at Paradox Interactive.
Yes, what a title.
Yeah, but this one, Joost, associate director.
It's much longer.
No, listen, I know this. Associate director of premium conversion optimization. Yes.
My last name?
De Schepper. Was it? Yeah. Yeah, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat.
Okay, thanks.
So, for me, when I asked you both to come, I was like, you're both super experienced, and I want to get inside your heads to figure out what's going on in your everyday lives at work. But also, you represent two of the coolest Swedish companies I know. But I think Spotify, we maybe need no introduction. Paradox Interactive, though.
Yes.
Can you please just tell us a little bit about?
How many people have heard about Paradox Interactive? Okay, well, that's a good start.
About half.
Paradox is a developer and publisher of premium PC and console games.
Yeah.
So as opposed to maybe King, for example, who do free-to-play mostly, we do premium. So players pay up front, and then we try to cater to all their needs, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into a little bit later, just some differences in your industry compared to maybe web and app analytics. But tell us a little bit more about your role there, your current role.
Well, I joined Paradox to build the analytics team in 2016. And I did that for a couple of years. And then for the past year, I've been actually working with all our development studios in trying to, well, that's the operations part. I do everything related to operations, which is knowledge sharing between studios, coordinating, helping out with relationships between the publishing teams and the studios. And that's where my background in analytics came in. So I'm trying to promote a more analytics friendly, or trying to see how we can be better developers with the help of data.
Cool. We're going to get back to that. But I want you, Joost, to share what's your role.
Yeah, so my extremely long title. So what I exactly do is I lead the conversion optimization team. So we do a lot of testing on the web. We're not responsible for any testing on the app, only on the web. And then we focus mostly on subscriptions, so on getting as many people to subscribe for Spotify as possible. And except that, I'm also responsible for Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager for the whole company.
Some big data there.
Quite a lot of data, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Before we get into your leadership roles, I wanted to set the context with asking, what are you focusing on right now within your teams? And I think we can start with you, Joost, because you were touching on it. What is your focus?
So right now, now it's working much better. So right now we're focusing a lot on getting as many, as I said before, getting as many subscribers in as possible. And we're trying to do that also in the different local markets. As you might understand, in Sweden, for example, it's very clear what kind of payment method you choose. But in other countries, that's much different. So for example, in APAC or in LATAM, there are a lot of different kind of payment methods where we need to focus on. What we're doing a lot of high velocity testing. So we try to test a lot. We have, of course, quite a lot of data, quite a lot of visitors, so we can really do a lot of testing. There are not so many very big gains to have had in once when testing. So for us, it's a lot about small marginal gains.
All right. When you say high velocity testing, can you describe that a little bit?
So yeah, we have a quite rigid process. Every 2 weeks, we drag in quite a lot of tests that we then actually prioritize according to the PIE framework. And with this framework, we might every 2 weeks drag in between 5 and 10 tests. And then after 2 weeks, we do the same process again. And that's how we keep on going and keep on going.
Yeah. How do you share the insights you get from all these tests only within your team or company-wide? Or?
We share them. We try to share them company-wide. So what we use Facebook for companies these days as well.
Yeah.
So that we post normally our learnings in the group where you want to share it with.
Yeah. Cool. We can get back to that later. So what are you focusing on?
Well, the team that I built, they are working on, I would say, A/B testing of player behavior in our games is the main focus. And we have quite a few live games. So we have started with a few of them. So I think rolling that out to all the games and improving the process of actually acting on the insights that come from all the behavior data is the.
So how does that work when you A/B test in the games that people paid up front?
Yes, that's video games is a our players are super engaged in their games, and we want to be as transparent as possible when we add any kind of tracking, or some would even say spy, when we spy on our players. But we know that they're super sensitive, so we want to be open and honest. And what we do is just like any other A/B test, we choose a sample and then we try different. I'd say that it costs too much to actually build a whole new feature, for example, and then have that be in the game. But we try and do minor things that we believe could be something we could build on, or try to explore maybe features that aren't optimized in a way. But it is a challenge that we have to do so much work in order to have those different versions of the game. So there's a limit to how much we can actually change in the tests.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, there's the game directors who own the creative. They have the last say in the regarding the creative. So
I don't think that gaming industry might be different to any other
Maybe not.
organization in that sense. Do you recognize that?
Sure, we also always need to like work together with design or with different R&D functions in order to like work on their domain, because we're actually testing on their domain often. They're responsible for one area of the website or for how things look and feel. So sure, it's also for us, it's about cooperation a lot.
Yeah.
And informing them all along the way.
Yeah, earning their trust to handle their baby, basically.
Sure. Can you develop that? Do you have an example or?
Well, I think analytics and any kind of insights where you want to achieve some kind of change, you need to first earn someone's trust, because they won't listen to you if you just tell them what to do. So I think analytics is we're in the trust line of business. So it starts with
some could argue that the data is there, like it's proof, but you're saying that it's not enough.
I would say in theory, but people are people, and well, I mean, there's of course two ways of achieving results. You can either be enforcing some kind of hard power when you just tell someone, but in analytics, it's more about those soft power, soft skills when you try to inspire and show them, and then I'd say that you get people more motivated if you work on your soft power skills instead of the.
So you're kind of touching on something here that sounds interesting. You need more than just being good with the data to become a good leader within this field. You need to also be very talented in talking to people.
If you want someone to change their behavior, you need to, as long as you're not their boss who can either fire or set your salary, you have to use different tools.
Yeah.
So yes, I would definitely argue, and that you get better results, you get people more motivated, and I think that's.
Do you share the same experience?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you need to kind of like, with pretty much everybody in one way or another, you need to engage them in your testing. So when it comes to, for example, developers, like a lot of developers, like also doing all the experience I had for years with Conversionista, they just work according to a ticket system more or less. Like, okay, it's one ticket, and then I take the next ticket again, and then I do the next thing again. And instead, if you work with them, hey, do you not actually want to see what your work actually gave for improvement? Like, because that actually gives them also a much more satisfied feeling. So with working with them in that kind of way, it's so much better, both for them and for us. And that's how we try to prove everything with testing. Like, hey guys, if you test this, you actually know what in the end, what you help this company with. And that's how we work with, for example, them. And when it comes to, for example, design, they also sometimes don't get the space to test all the things they actually want to test, because they often have loads of great designs. So working with them directly, and not only like pushing our stuff on them, but also testing what they want to test.
Sure. So you both actually started at your respective companies in 2016. And I think that you share the experience of being the first one. So you had to build your teams. Can you talk a little bit about how it was coming in? What was your first assignment?
My first assignment was actually to go through the whole website and see what's broken, what's not broken, more or less, like what I thought we should optimize. But in theory, I was at that moment, there were no, I had no developers. There were no, I didn't have a designer in my team. There were no analytic people. So it was really like, kind of like trying to see with being blind at the same time, more or less. So it was focused in the beginning, it was on recruitment.
Yeah.
And also there was no tool at the moment to actually do all this testing. So also that needed to be acquired first. So the first year was a lot about finding the right talent, hiring the right people, getting trust within the organization as well, and finding the right tools.
So trust within the organization. Who brought you in? What was your leadership's motivation to bring you in, and what did they ask you to accomplish within the first year?
So, for example, one of the things was to try to do more localization, to give more like, let's say, for example, a lot of the development is done in Europe and in the US, and maybe Asia didn't get all the love that they wanted. So help them out with, for example, doing more tests to show that the local approach works. So all that kind of things. That was kind of what we brought in for.
Yeah. Cool. Can you tell me about your?
Well, I was saying before how usually data and those kinds of tools were used in the free-to-play on the free-to-play scene, but I was hired to explore and see if we could find some way of bringing value into a premium business model.
What was your background before you came to Paradox?
Ooh, I've been a digital analyst forever, so that was my my background. But I was always very interested in all aspects of analytics. So I think what brought me to Paradox was my T-shaped competence. So digital analytics was my main expertise, but I have dabbled in all kinds of market research and working closely with UX designers, for example, at another company I was working at. So I think having a full perspective of what we could do with this function was probably what brought me to Paradox.
Yeah. And you was the first one in, and what was your first?
No, I wasn't the first one in. There had been a couple before, but I think the difference when I came in was that my manager separated the function of analytics from the DevOps team to be a team of its own, and then exploring and working more closely with the other parts of the organization.
Okay.
So that's what happened in 2016.
All right, cool. And Joost, you came from Conversionista before you entered?
Yes, I did.
Yeah? So I'm thinking that you have a lot of experience seeing different companies trying to achieve high tempo testing, high velocity testing culture and process. What would you say you've learned from those? What are those who are succeeding? What are they doing?
So yeah, we worked with quite a lot of companies in the time. I worked for Conversionista for about 3 years, I think. And during these years, you pretty much saw that when also higher in the company, people were data driven, and also like they didn't lose faith directly. So a lot of people sell A/B testing like, oh, you're getting all this great conversion uplifts, and like then you see that, but often doesn't happen directly, and then a lot of people lose interest, and after time it dies out kind of. So when there is more of a data-driven culture high up, then it often worked already much better. So I think one of the ways like we tried to do it at that time was like you don't only sell conversion uplifts, but you sell learnings about your customer. So even things that actually don't work out or don't give you this extra millions more, but still you have actually learned something about your customer. So it's still very valid information. Or maybe you saved actually a lot of money by not going into that direction for real, into production, for example. So if you do things that way, and if that kind of thinking is in the whole organization, then often it was easier to like get them into the rhythm of high velocity A/B testing.
Yeah. And I remember we had a lunch in the fall where you told me that leadership, when you came into Spotify, they didn't ask you specifically to increase this number, but to increase the tempo of the experiments. Like how many learnings can we get in this amount of time?
Exactly.
Yeah. And to me, that resonates so well. Can you talk a little bit of how that like made you approach this differently than if you would have gotten like, we have this metric, increase it by 20?
Yeah, I think it gives you a lot of like, you're more relaxed. You don't feel under that much pressure in a way, like you need to come up with this brilliant idea. You get to have more long-term goals. So for example, right now we work with like yearly hypotheses or even like longer hypotheses. I could call them North Star goals in a way.
Yeah.
And then we do test according to these North Star metrics. So everything is kind of defined under these couple of metrics. So we don't need to have this like big shot approach and one test.
Yeah.
And then we need to make sure that we are worth our salaries. We can slowly work into that direction. And then every time we learn something new. So we just say like, oh, this month we learned 30 new things about our customers.
Yeah.
In the US, for example.
And what I've noticed is that when that is your assignment, how can we test as many things as possible, or how can we learn as much as possible? You start by focusing to set up the infrastructure to be able to get this tempo. And then you get into, because obviously you have to optimize for a metric. You have to have a goal. But then you focus on the infrastructure first, and then you can run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you also focus on that? Do you have that mindset at Paradox?
Yeah, but I mean, it would be wrong of me to comment on what the metrics of the current analytics team is, but for sure,
to build the infrastructure around how to use the data within your organization.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So, if we take a step back, and I kind of like to ask this question, what has been your biggest fuck up throughout your career?
Yes.
Going first.
How much time do we have? Well, I once published a script that broke the whole e-commerce site down for like a day.
I have done that.
Pretty big fuck up. And then it was just so much stuff.
Thank you for sharing that. Who else has that experience? Because we both have.
Yeah, I did that as well.
Some people are raising their hands. Thank you.
So I think so again, we're talking more than 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
So before DoubleClick was DoubleClick and it was called Dart, if I'm correct. Then somebody told me instead of Google Ads /AdWords, use Dart instead for doing all your campaigns. So he kind of told me how to set it up, but he forgot to tell me to put in the localization in the end.
All right.
Or I forgot to do it. So the AdWords campaign went global instead of only in the Netherlands or only in Denmark. I don't remember. So it costed around, I think, 500,000 crowns in 2 days.
You had some good results out of it?
No, there were not that many people in Afghanistan want to buy contact lenses.
How?
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Who else have a similar experience? No, you were alone with this one, Joost. So, fuck-ups usually brings us to the biggest learnings, right? And that is my follow-up question. It doesn't have to be around this mistake, but what is your most significant learning that you are using in your everyday leadership or in your everyday work?
I think this is more of a general learning. Never underestimate the communications part of any kind of work you do. But it's really complicated sometimes to communicate with people who are not sharing your expertise or do not know everything that you know. So just making sure that we are all aligned, that we are talking about the same things, is probably one of my key learnings. Never assume.
Yeah, that sounds really healthy. How do you actually go about making sure that you are living this?
Well, me personally, I usually ask the person. So, what are we doing here? And then make them repeat or have their take on the project or what we have agreed upon, or just.
It sounds awesome and super
mirroring.
Simple.
Yeah,
so
it's super simple.
So let's say you are you're in the beginning of a project.
Yes.
And you have some sort of scope and brief.
Yes.
You enter the room.
So we are talking about complicated modeling and AI and like all the stuff we talk about. And then when you have a conversation with a game director, okay, so what are we trying to achieve here?
So you let them brief you again.
Exactly. So mirroring.
Brief and debrief and brief.
And then I understand if we're speaking on completely different levels here.
Yeah.
So it's super simple, but it's very powerful.
Yeah, it sounds super powerful. What is your learning, and how do you use it in your everyday management?
For us, it's really important to keep on making mistakes,
Yeah.
kind of, and also to be really pushy in general. So, like for our team, if we haven't pissed off anybody in a week, that's a bad week. So that means that we haven't pushed like the limits of people like far enough. So we do want to kind of like do that.
Yeah.
So this does not mean that we want to piss off people in such a way that they don't want to work with us anymore. But we
No.
do want to like if you don't push that you get some kind of conflict, it means that you're trying to do your test too safe, that you're not.
So, okay. So asking the uncomfortable questions, or
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, to me that sounds awesome, but it also sounds like it demands some very safe environment, like a leadership. What do you do to really like make sure this is possible?
So at least within the team, then we can, well, at least as far as from my perspective, of course, like we can be fairly honest to each other. So we do every couple of weeks this like stop, start, and do more feedback sessions where we all say to each other like, hey, I want you to do more of this. I want you to stop doing this. And I like what I'm seeing here. So we're doing all that kind of stuff. So we kind of try to make a little like very close knit group where we can be very honest to each other.
Yeah.
So that makes it kind of like, yeah.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about your team. How many people do you have on your team?
Right now we are about 7.
All right.
So
And
3 developers.
Yeah.
2 in London and one in Singapore. And then we have a designer and 2 analysts.
Right.
1 data engineer, analyst. Yeah.
Yeah. And recruiting this group you have been doing throughout 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how much time do you spend with the recruitment?
So quite a lot, and trying to be really proactive with that. So not like, oh, now there's a need, now we need to recruit somebody, and and then like do it really, really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So actually try to be proactive and already have people beforehand that you know that you are interested in, and then you can approach them later on.
Yeah.
So we really try to do it like that, because otherwise, like, you are recruiting somebody when you're already stressed, and then you give them often a bad first impression of the work as well. So it's much more better if you already like, if you know, like, okay, in half a year this is going to happen. So the 3 months before I need to recruit, so then I can actually have a good time learning up this person. So then it can start. He or she can start.
Sounds healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I know. I try to recruit people too. How does your analytics team? How many are you?
Right now, when we started, it was a data scientist and a data engineer. So as the team grew, we decided to split them in 2. So right now there's 7 data scientists working stakeholder facing, embedded in game dev teams, and then there's the data engineers who do all the data collection and maintenance and quality and all of that, and they are 4 people.
All right.
So working really closely together, but 2 separate teams.
How do you approach recruiting? Do you have the same approach, like proactive, or?
Yeah, but data scientists are hard to come by. So you have to have a very opportunistic way of thinking. I think for me personally, I would rather find the right person with the right attitude and with the right fit within the team. So have a mix of people who are maybe super analytical and loves to dig into stuff, and then balance that out with someone else who is more of a good enough type of person, so that we can be a little bit more faster in turning, well, faster turnover. But I would rather hire someone who I can teach, or who has some learnings to do within a certain tool or language or something, because things also move so fast. Like next year, maybe it's not R anymore. It's something else or whatever. So I'd rather have people who want to learn and develop than find that perfect gold nugget.
Yeah, we talked prior to this.
Yeah.
You told me that you rather hire for soft skills if you have to choose. And one reason for this was also this communicative
Yes,
aspect.
exactly. So it's you can teach someone a hard skill, but having those stakeholder conversations and really people that are passionate about the product, or in our case about the game, is going to make things so much easier when implementing change or trying to just get things done.
Yeah, because the analysts are rarely the person who sits on the decision power.
No,
So the analysts are fueling decision makers.
exactly.
And then you need to be able to communicate your data. So it doesn't matter how much quality you have in your collection or how skilled you are at taking the insights.
The perfect number, but you don't understand it, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So what would you say is the next big thing for you and your team? Skill-wise or focus-wise, or?
Yeah, I can start. So one new area where we are adding to the team as a skill is going to be SEO.
All right.
So we're also going to focus on that for 2020.
All right.
So that's going to be like a fun new journey.
What drove that decision?
Well, mainly that like there is still a lot to do there.
Okay.
So that's the biggest reason for actually doing that one.
Yeah, but that's an interesting, cool.
Yeah, and except that, pretty much what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And for Paradox and the data people?
Yeah, I think we have always we have suffered from a weird combination of making decisions about which games we invest in early, like 3 to 4 years before we launch, and that's a long time, and a lot of stuff can happen during that long development cycle. So what we have done in last year, we have experimented with early access just to get data before the game is actually done. So getting those insights as soon as possible. But it wasn't all about data collection. It had a lot of other business reasons why we did that too.
Yeah.
But one of the perks about it was that we got data sooner.
Yeah, cool. I wish we had more time to talk. I'm going to wrap this up. Yeah, I'm going to wrap this up by my key takeaways from this discussion is that I started the introduction by saying like management need to, in a greater extent, enable this way of working. But I feel like you guys are actually working with promoting this way of working. Enablement is not enough. Like you are out there talking to many people, cross-functional within your company, and I'm gonna start using that word instead because that is a powerful difference, I think, and also the focus on creating a learning organization and set the stage for how do we learn as much as possible in the shortest amount of time possible. Do you have any takeaways from this talk?
I don't know.
No, I think you had the two most important ones at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think like as we said, like recruitment is really important, that you recruit the right people.
Sure. Yeah.
So you are as agile as you can be.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're always dependent on other people for doing your test and for making your designs or for doing the copy, for example. So the best thing is to have a lot of like all this deep knowledge within your team.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening. And if you want to continue listening to Growthpodden, you can find it at Spotify or other platforms.
Which other platforms?
There are no other platforms.
Thank you so much. And I think there is coffee now. Do you want to take over, Andreas?
Let's just give a round of applause.